And what's wrong with a black man that would take that kind of money out of a poor neighborhood and buy himself a private jet? What's wrong with y'all niggas? What's wrong with you?
If you get fucking busted, you fucking all of my shit up. You understand that? And I ain't having that. You gotta hide this the way I'm giving this to you, or you can step. You understand what I'm saying?
Fuck him, he don't get shit anyway.
Who this nigga up on that name?
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I want to talk to you guys about something real quick. You know, I always bring up different localities of police officers and things like that matter in my diatribes daily. This one stuck out to me a little bit more. This was a police officer in Detroit, Michigan by the name of Officer Wu, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, an Asian American officer who felt the need to go around the town of Detroit and call people niggas. I make this up. In fact, this officer had 85 complaints within this past year, and according to the sources, he's had over 7 active lawsuits, which 4 of them have led into, if you want to say, some type of treasure. You know, there's always a treasure they use to pay these people off when things like this happen. Anyway, so said, there's been so many different allegations towards Officer Wu that has now started causing some contention, some kinds of questions being answered. And one of the questions being brought about is, why was this man able to make it to become sergeant? Which I think is the heaviest dynamic that's sitting out right now. Why is this man able to become sergeant with 85 complaints against him within the past 2 years? It's kind of odd, right? Well, if I had to make a guess, and I say this myself, I believe it's because he was allowed. This is not an attempt to attack the Asian community. It's basically just to say, the same Asian community that you have out that have African Americans advocating for them because of this stimulus attacks that have been happening all across the country, it's just hard to imagine that these same Asians that are crying racism are actually racist themselves. And I was giving example after example after example. So my best part is not saying kill your advocacy, it's just watch who you're advocating for. All this kind of misconduct amongst each other, and it doesn't matter if it's a white woman in Rhode Island getting her head bashed in by a cop, whether it's a white man getting shot or tased in the middle of the street in front of his family for simply parking in the wrong space. Police brutality is police brutality. So guys, take a look at this footage, tell me what you think. It's going to be 2 parts.
Being myself an African American, I don't put much stock into the police force anymore.
There was a time when Jay Brown dreamt of becoming a Detroit cop, but that changed the day he came face to face with one.
I started opening my door to step out of my vehicle, and that's when the cop car came blazing up on me.
In broad daylight in September of 2015, Brown was pulling up to a rental property he helped manage near Fenkell and Greenfield when he says Officer Stephen Koo pulled up to him.
He told me not to move, asked me where the drugs are there drugs in my vehicle, are there drugs in the house that I'm approaching, what am I doing here? And I said, no sir, I do not know what's going on, I'm just here to check on some rental property.
Nearly the whole time, he said Koo's gun was trained on his chest.
Still holding a gun on you after 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and I'm asking you, pleading with you, can you please lower your weapon?
He said Koo used profanity and was demeaning, that he searched his vehicle but found no drugs or stolen weapons. And before Koo left, according to the complaint, he wrote him a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt and then said this.
He just said, he's just another stupid
Do you have any doubt at all that he used the N-word?
I have no doubt in my mind that he used the N-word. If you feel that strongly about the color of my skin, you probably shouldn't be an officer in the city of Detroit.
Jay filed a citizen's complaint against Officer Koo, seen here on Facebook, that included allegations he used racist language and unnecessary force. Koo denied both. It was hardly the first time he'd been accused. The average uniformed officer in Detroit has received just over 8 citizen complaints, according to DPD data. Some go their entire career without receiving one. But Stephen Koo, in his 12 years on the force, has received 85. We could not find any officer who's amassed that many that quickly. And for Koo, virtually every complaint against him where race is listed is lodged by a person of color.
It's somewhat of a concerning pattern, simply because you would probably want to see a mix of different races that we're talking about.
They rolled the window down and they asked us, do we have any guns or drugs on us?
DeAndre Reed and his brother were standing outside on the street where they live when Officer Koo and his partner pulled up.
We said no. They told us to lift up our shirts and do a complete circle so they could see our waistband. We complied.
He said Koo handcuffed him, searched him, then saw that DeAndre had an outstanding traffic warrant. It was then, according to the complaint, that Koo said this.
Thank my dumb brother that I'm going to jail.
He used that word.
Yes. He said it like that's something that he always says. He was very confident in saying it.
And Reed's neighbor was a witness.
And he was like, this is because of your brother. And I was like, whoa, man, hold on, wait a minute.
Reed was jailed and then released. After he was, he filed a complaint against Koo with the city's Office of Chief Investigator. Reed and 3 witnesses said Koo used the N-word. The only person who didn't was Koo. The complaint was sustained, but Koo appealed and with no reason documented, his commanding officer later dismissed the charge. Even today, DPD couldn't tell us why.
We take it very seriously, and we have disciplined members of the department strenuously when using that type of language, especially with citizens.
Not him, though.
Not in 2015, apparently. However, I can't state with confidence what occurred at that hearing when he appealed it.
Chris Gravlin is DPD's Director of Professional Standards. He joined the department in 2019 and said until he arrived, sustained complaints against officers were regularly dismissed without a reason documented. He says since Koo joined the force, he's been flagged at least 12 times when civilian complaints pop up and counseled by a superior.
For you to say stuff like that, you just know that your best intentions is not to protect people like me. You don't like people like me.
More alarming than the number of complaints against Koo is how consistent many of them are. He has been accused repeatedly by people of color of harassing them, of using the same demeaning language, and at least 8 times of using or threatening to use excessive force.
He a gangster with a badge. I'm 38 years old. I ain't never seen no evil like that.
Corey Collins said he was leaving his grandmother's house when Koo and his partner pulled up.
They asked me, can they search me? I said no. I haven't did nothing, you know.
According to Collins' complaint, the 2 men traded insults before Koo cuffed him and then said,
my trigger finger is itching. I dare you to move. I dare you to move.
What does that mean to you?
Blow my head off.
Collins was later released, not charged with anything. He filed a complaint against Koo alleging he threatened his life. Koo denied making any threats. The complaint was not sustained.
I never had no police threaten my life. He threatened my life.
A finding of not sustained doesn't mean the allegation didn't happen, but there wasn't enough evidence to prove it either way. It's the most common outcome for citizen complaints, and it's the same outcome Jay Brown received when he said Koo called him the N-word and used excessive force.
They pay no attention to any of this officer's patterns of practice, despite the remarkable similarity between all of these people's complaints.
Julie Hurwitz is a civil rights attorney currently suing Koo in federal court on behalf of a Detroit man Koo and his partners arrested. She has reviewed his lengthy list of citizen complaints dating back more than a decade.
What the heck is going on here? Why is this man still a police officer?
In 2018, Koo faced his harshest punishment yet, following his role in a drug raid where a dog was shot and killed. When Internal Affairs investigated, Koo said he never fired at the dog, but ballistics later found a bullet casing from his gun. When confronted, he changed his story and told investigators he forgot.
How does an officer say with a straight face that they forgot shooting their gun?
That is what we want to be getting to at the bottom of any investigation.
Koo and other officers were deemed untruthful. The entire drug case was dismissed, and the disciplinary sergeant recommended Koo be terminated. But instead of doling out any punishment at all, his commanding officer dismissed the entire case for timeliness, saying it had dragged on for too long.
Now I'd like to make a motion to approve the promotions to the rank of sergeant.
Just 3 months later, after a recommendation to fire him,
Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Stephen Koo was promoted from officer to sergeant. When I reached him by phone this month, he declined comment for this report. Today, as a result of this story, DPD says they're considering reassigning him.
Based upon your questions, Interim Chief White is aware of and taking a look at all of his options right now with Sergeant Q and how best to utilize him, given some of the things that you've raised in this report.
Those already familiar with Koo wonder why it didn't happen much sooner.
Should he be a cop today?
Absolutely not. No. He should not be a Detroit police officer.
He should not be an officer of any police department.
We did reach out to the Detroit Police Officers Association and the Lieutenants and Sergeants Association, which have both represented Sergeant Koo throughout his career. Neither returned our call. I'm Ross Jones, 7 Action News.
A 7 Action News investigation sidelined him from patrol duty. And now we're breaking even more news about his history that took Detroit police by surprise.
The sergeant has been taken to court more than a half dozen times, and it's cost taxpayers a small fortune in settlements alone. One case is being litigated right now, but the city insists no wrongdoing.
Tonight, 7 investigator Ross Jones continues his deep dive into this concerning alleged pattern of behavior.
And brings us part 2 of his investigation.
He seems to be a frequent flyer.
Attorney David Robinson is talking about Sergeant Stephen Koo. As we reported last week, the 12-year veteran of the Detroit Police Department has amassed more complaints against him than almost any other officer on the force.
He a gangster with a badge.
I've been called a by him. I've been called a by him.
In his 12 years with the department, Koo has been among its most sued officers too, amassing at least 8 lawsuits filed against him, costing taxpayers to defend and often settle. The cases run the gamut, from alleged assault and battery to deprivation of civil rights to gross negligence. In each of the lawsuits, Koo was just one of several DPD officers named.
He was trying to antagonize me.
In October 2016, Terry Parnell was at his mother's home when Koo and his partner showed up in the front yard. Parnell said he had a legally purchased and registered handgun, and when the officers arrived, he took it out and placed it on the front porch, and they took him to the ground.
Tried to give them my paperwork. They didn't want to receive it. Handcuffed me, took me in, booked me.
A citizen can have a gun on their own private property.
Parnell sued DPD for wrongful arrest. He settled the case and a separate lawsuit against the department where Koo was not a defendant for $375,000. The city admitted no wrongdoing.
Their job is to protect and serve, not abuse.
Lisa Ingram and her family say they were in their driveway when Officer Koo and his partners arrived to conduct a raid on their neighbor's home.
So you had nothing to do with the raid?
No.
You just lived next to the raid?
Right.
Still, they say they were handcuffed and detained as if they were the target.
They had guns to our head, tell us to get on the ground, shut the up. We ain't, got no right to talk, any of that.
The family sued. The city settled, again admitting no wrongdoing for $130,000. To date, the city has paid out more than $800,000 in cases where Koo was a defendant.
And they jumped out cussing, and people took off running.
And today, the city is defending a lawsuit filed by Mark Gaddis. On the night of July 21st, 2017, he and members of his family were gathering out on the front lawn of his aunt's home in Detroit when a dark car pulled up.
They really just heard the car, and instantly a few people started running, so instantly my reaction was to run. As soon as I started running, I heard somebody say, I'm gonna shoot you, I'm gonna shoot you. So I really started running fast then.
The men were cops, including Officer Koo, but Gaddis said that wasn't clear at first. It was dark. They were in a semi-marked DPD vehicle, and their headlights were off. The officers briefly apprehended Gaddis, according to the complaint, kicking him and beating him before Gaddis broke free. At that point, he was shot twice, once in the buttocks and again in the back of his ankle. Officers said Gaddis had a gun in his hand and tried to use it. He was taken to the hospital in temporary serious condition.
I woke up in the room. They just kept trying to make me say I had a gun, and just trying to force me to say, and that's what happened that night,
Gaddis would be charged with 11 felonies, including assaulting a police officer.
Did you have a gun that night?
No, sir.
Detroit police investigated the shooting, ruling it justified. During trial, multiple officers said they saw Gaddis with a firearm, and Koo said he raised it.
Well, fuck you then, old trout mouth ass nigga.